Greetings all, Ferrariman601 here. Welcome to the live commentary stream for the 2017 Hungarian Grand Prix. As always with these live commentary streams, I do advise you that I will not be streaming actual video of the session in progress. Therefore, I do advise you that you do position yourself strategically between the sound of my voice and your television or other preferred form of media consumption so that you can keep track of the live action going on in Hungary as well as participate in our live chat here. We do have a very interesting Grand Prix on tap for us before Formula One goes into its traditional summer break, now enforced by regulations. The Drivers' Championship has only 1 point in it. Sebastian Vettel leads Lewis Hamilton right now in the Drivers' Championship, 177 points to 176, and then it's down in P3 for Valtteri Bottas with 154, who still is not out of the question for being a factor in that title fight. However, after today's race, it is incredibly improbable that there will still be 1 point in that Drivers' Championship heading into the summer break. So somebody is either going to consolidate a lead or take the lead today, and I do wonder what is going to happen. On the Constructors' Championship side, it's a little bit less of an intriguing story. Mercedes-AMG Petronas still leading Ferrari, 330 points to 240 to 275. However, Red Bull are on the march. They are looking to consolidate P3 in the Constructors' Championship, and who knows, courtesy of Max Verstappen, perhaps some antics will get underway today in that regard. Another big story for today's race, Felipe Massa has dropped out of the Hungarian Grand Prix due to illness. During the practice sessions, he complained of feeling dizzy in the car, and he actually had to go to the hospital in Budapest for overnight observation. He is okay. He has since taken to social media reassuring all of us that he is, in fact, okay. However, deputizing for Felipe Massa is Paul di Resta. The Scotsman last drove in Formula One in 2013. Paul di Resta didn't even sit in the car until yesterday morning for qualifying, and now he's starting the Grand Prix. So that's a rather interesting storyline in and of itself. However, we all do already miss Felipe Massa, even though he wasn't supposed to be racing this year, so fine, I guess we can accept that. Looking at the starting grid for today's Hungarian Grand Prix, we have got ourselves, well, pretty status quo here. The Ferraris have locked out the front row. Sebastian Vettel on pole, Kimi Räikkönen in P2. The Mercedes men of Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton line up 3rd and 4th, respectively. Max Verstappen, pretty good qualifying effort in P5. He's followed by his teammate Daniel Ricciardo in P6. The story of stories in qualifying, though, is that both McLarens made it into Q3. Fernando Alonso in P7 and Stoffel Vandoorne in P8. That means that both of the McLarens are starting in points-paying positions. How many laps will the Honda engines do before VTEC is no more? Who knows? It might just be 70. Carlos Sainz lines up in P9, and Julian Palmer lines up in 10th. 11th for Esteban Ocon, 12th for Nico Hülkenberg, 13th for Sergio Perez. The Force India is not having a great time here at the Hungaroring. P14 for Romain Grosjean and P15 for Kevin Magnussen in both the Haas cars. P16 for the Torpedo, P17 for Lance Stroll, P18 for Pascal Wehrlein, and P19 for Paul di Resta. He managed to get in that car for the first time in a qualifying session, and he didn't qualify last. That's actually a pretty good achievement. I'm not trying to belittle Paul di Resta there. He's had essentially no seat time in this car, and he managed not to start last. That's pretty good. He's already put Luca Badoer to shame, 2009 when he came back into F1, deputizing as well for Felipe Massa. And bringing up the rear in P20 is Marcus Ericsson. Gotta flip the grid. Yeah, I agree. I think we've got to flip the grid here. It would be really cool to see Paul di Resta starting in 2nd place. I wouldn't put past him coming up through the field here. Yes, I know he's probably going to be very conservative because this is his first Grand Prix in quite a while, but he did put in some pretty good drives in his Force India days, and I'm very glad to see him back on the grid. And Toto Wolff, the Mercedes boss, came out yesterday saying that he hopes this performance will jumpstart Paul di Resta's previously dead Formula One career, and I have to agree with him. Paul di Resta, he's a great personality. There's something about having Scottish drivers on the grid that just fits this sport very nicely, so it would be really cool if Paul di Resta could get himself back into a full-time drive for 2018. However, it is interesting to note Lance Stroll, now really with an opportunity to shine for Williams. He's down there in P17, so status quo now for Lance Stroll off of his podium in Azerbaijan. Up at the sharp end of the grid, I do expect the two Ferraris to march off into the distance pretty quickly, given Lewis Hamilton's inconsistent ability on the start line. Valtteri Bottas will probably have a very quiet afternoon, doing another solid job for Mercedes. I do expect those Mercedes cars to be swapping positions at some point. They'll probably do it in a pit stop, but I do expect Hamilton to finish ahead of Bottas no matter what happens. As for what happens with Max Verstappen in P5, if you remember the 2005 iteration of the Hungarian Grand Prix, a Red Bull got flipped over. The Red Bull of Christian Klien got into the left front of the Sauber of Jacques Villeneuve, and we had a roll into turn 1. I don't know if Max Verstappen's going to try to emulate that little bit of historical Easter eggness, but yeah, it's possible. Anything can happen with Verstappen. About 8.5 minutes to go before the formation lap begins. Yeah, if Bottas can get a good start and perhaps overtake both of those Ferraris, yeah, it could be an interesting race. However, I don't think that's going to happen because both Vettel and Raikkonen have been pretty consistent off the line so far this year. Yes, a lot of McLaren fans, if you say so. Pretty sure that's Dutch orange, but yeah, the McLarens, they unwittingly painted themselves in Dutch sporting colors this year. Now, if they only had Max Verstappen, they'd be in really great shape. However, P7 and P8 on the grid for both of the McLarens, that's pretty good. That's really good. If they could only finish there, they might not be in such bad shape. However, I'm not so optimistic about that. Again, VTEC is not particularly reliable this year. Getting some shots of the mechanics surrounding Raikkonen's car. Kimi is in the car, and they're just getting everything set up to start up the engine, and then wait for the lights to go out for the formation lap. Sebastian Vettel getting his helmet on and clipping the Hans device into the sides of the helmet there. I've always liked that little system, just two quick-release fasteners there holding the Hans to the back of the helmet, or the helmet to the Hans, whatever your perspective may be. Vettel now walking toward the car. Also, lots of Finnish fans here today. Live shot showing a Finnish fan with an inflatable Kimi doll dressed in McLaren colors. That's definitely a vintage item at this point. But yeah, lots of Finnish fans here. Hungary and Finland, they share a little bit of a kinship. Hungarian and Finnish are the two Uralic languages of Europe. They are actually quite closely related to each other in an etymological and linguistic sense. They're two isolated languages of Europe. They're not Indo-European, so therefore the Hungarians and the Finns, they do share a little bit of a kinship amongst each other. Yes, Nathan, I am aware. I did a very brief test to see if I could actually live stream as well as doing a parallel upload, because I've got an upload going up right now. I did the review of the RSS Formula 79, and that is uploading at the moment, scheduled release for noon Eastern Time US, so that's going on right now. Yeah, the F79 review, it's very much a rushed production situation because we've also got the Williams FW18 coming out from VRC in a couple of hours' time. I don't think I'm going to have enough time to get a review done of that today. It's always difficult to do one of those videos in one day, but I did it with F79, and hopefully it doesn't come out too badly for you guys. However, F79, it's a really cool car, and I do hope you enjoy the review. I don't think it's going to affect the upload. We can have a look over here. They're still going, 49 minutes remaining. Yep, you can see the title there. It literally sucks. Obviously, F79 being a ground effect car, it's based very heavily on the Lotus 79. So, yeah, it sucks, and that's the title. The car does not suck, though, in a figurative sense. It only sucks in a literal sense. I do not at all regard Codemaster games as Sims. None of them are Sims. Ever. They've never been Sims, and they'll never be Sims. As much as they try to say, yeah, we care about physics, and we care about the really hardcore sim racers. No, they don't. They just don't. And they never have. The closest they ever got to a reasonable racing game was all the way back in the mid-2000s, Toka Race Driver, that series. That was cool in the sense that you had a lot of different cars and a lot of different tracks. However, the physics were still, well, they left a whole lot to be desired. But at least they tried. They tried to make a really diversified game there, and they did a good job, but they never really tried to duplicate that once again. Yeah, the Dirt series, debatable, but no. Cody's, they have no idea how to do physics. They barely have an idea to do graphics. I'm really not impressed at all with some of the early gameplay footage that we've seen of F1 2017. Really not. Yes, the Ferrari 312 T4 from 1979. That's a glorious car. But that flat 12 engine was not the best idea because it's so wide. And if ground effect is the name of the game, and it definitely was by that point, you want as narrow an engine as possible so that you want to narrow his engine as possible so that you can get yourself more airflow underneath the car. And Ferrari running that very wide flat 12 engine really cut down on the overall size of those tunnels that they were able to get under the car. So, yeah, it sounded cool, and it was powerful, but at the same time, aerodynamically inferior by that point. In my opinion, the quirkiest, ugliest duckling of all F1 cars is the McLaren MP418. Never raced, it was atrociously unreliable, but the technology on the MP418, it kind of went into mothballs for a while, and then when Adrian Newey went to Red Bull and then designed that RB5 for 2009, it had MP418 written all over it, and then RB6, RB7, RB8, they kept winning all of those world championships. So, yep. That's the ugly duckling of Formula One. It was just not quite ready for the world. Yes, Ron Dennis could end up with his fair share of historic McLaren F1 cars. The reason for this is McLaren have not yet paid him the money to which he is entitled for selling his shares of the company. And it's a little uncertain whether or not McLaren will actually do it. If they don't do it, there's going to be another huge legal fight, and because they won't be able to give him the cash, they're going to have to give him a whole bunch of historic cars to make up the difference, and that's going to include the MP4-1, the first carbon fiber monocoque chassis, MP4-4, perhaps Senna's actual MP4-4 with which he won a whole bunch of races, maybe an MP4-6, maybe even one of the more modern cars as well. So Ron Dennis could be coming into, by accident, one of the most prestigious car collections of all time. Getting set up here for the formation lap. We've got one red light still on at the front of the grid. The tire blankets are off, the engines are started, the mechanics have cleared the grid, and we are waiting for the green lights. Still waiting for the green lights. Where are the green lights? There's 2 p.m. over in Hungary. And the cars have rolled off on the formation lap. Looks like everybody has gotten off the grid nicely, and now, as is custom, all of the mechanics will run across the racetrack and back into the pit lane to take up their positions in the garages and on the pit wall. However, the two Ferraris lead the field away on the formation lap. The Ferraris have already made it through turn 2, heading through what will be the very fast and flat-out turn 3 section. The Hungaroring is actually one of my favorite racetracks. A lot of people criticize it because they say it's bad for overtaking and it kind of looks a little bit dull on television. I entirely disagree. I think this place is absolutely fascinating from a standpoint of technicalities. This is a great place to watch a Formula One car in operation. Lots of changes of direction, lots of different sort of loading situations on the car. You need good mechanical grip here, but you also need good aero grip because you do have that very high-speed turn 3. So if you've got a car set up well for the Hungaroring, that'll also pay dividends in terms of overall chassis behavior and dynamics across the balance of the season. Also, this place is a pretty considerable physical challenge for the drivers. They often describe this place as like Monaco without the houses. The drivers are under a lot of physical pressure during a lap around the Hungaroring because you do have quite a bit of medium speed corners, a lot of low speed corners, and even some high speeds thrown into the mix. The drivers are working hard in the cockpit. And 70 laps around this place means that it's a longer race, and they really do earn their money. The Ferrari's already coming into Sector 3, coming into the penultimate corner. We're coming up back to the starting grid. So far, everything looking good on the formation lap. Yes, over here in the United States, NBCSN. It's the only place you could watch Formula One. And yes, they have way too many ads. They break every 5 minutes during the race for ads. We never see pit stops for the most part because of all the ads. And one of the Ferrari fans has popped off one of those red smoke grenades, as is pretty customary here. We don't really see that at too many places around the world, but we do see that in Hungary. Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen have already parked up in row 1, on board here with Paul di Resta as he's coming through turn 14, the final corner here at the Hungaroring. Looks like he's kept his tires in good shape on the formation lap. Marcus Ericsson behind. Just waiting for the last couple of rows to take their positions. The medical car is following Ericsson to the grid. The cars are gridded up, the medical car is in position, the green flag is waved, and we await the lights. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5, pause, lights out, and away we go. Looks like a pretty even keel start once again from both of the Ferraris. Sebastian Vettel slots in ahead of Kimi Raikkonen, Valtteri Bottas behind. Max Verstappen looking at Lewis Hamilton, then thinks better of it. Breaking down into turn 1, it is Vettel from Raikkonen. Verstappen passing Lewis Hamilton on the outside. Will he hold that position? Verstappen has to go out wide. And he drops back in behind Valtteri Bottas, but the two Red Bulls coming together into turn 2. Somebody was shuffled off the track. I think it was Daniel Ricciardo. Indeed it was. Car number 3 spinning in the middle of the circuit. Daniel Ricciardo now has gone entirely backwards. He's been passed by the entire field, and he is stranded just on the outside of turn 3. He's in the middle of the racetrack now, out of turn 3. Yellow in sector 1. Max Verstappen is in P3 ahead of Lewis Hamilton now. There was contact into turn 2 between both of the Red Bulls, and Daniel Ricciardo came out worse for wear. I do not know if Ricciardo has managed to get that car going again. The local yellow has been stubbed down in sector 1. Ricciardo did manage to get the car going, but now he is stopped. Looks like there's water spraying all over the place. He has radiator damage, I will say, on board with Daniel Ricciardo. Safety car has been deployed. We confirm safety car deploy. There is water and debris all over the circuit on the exit of turn 3, right on the racing line. And Daniel Ricciardo has managed to limp that Red Bull over to the side of the track outside of turn 3 on the run up to turn 4. Daniel Ricciardo on the radio couldn't quite hear the whole transmission, but he said, if that's who I think it was, that's beeped up. Yeah. Daniel Ricciardo, not a happy camper, understandably so. However, now the Mercedes AMG of Bernd Mailander leads the Hungarian Grand Prix ahead of Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen. Daniel Ricciardo now climbing out of the Red Bull. He seems okay. quite thankfully. However, there is water all over the track around that Red Bull. Obvious damage to the radiator and to the left-hand side pod. Red Bull mechanics not looking too pleased about that. Let's get a replay of the start here. Good start from both of the Ferraris, as we expected. Max Verstappen, however, having a look at both the Mercedes cars into turn 1, he couldn't quite get a run on anybody. However, he takes the outside line around Hamilton and Bottas. Bottas forces Verstappen wide over those exit curbs, and he loses out to Bottas. He comes out marginally behind his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, and then into turn 2, Verstappen takes the inside line, he locks up the left front, and that is enough to punt him square into the left-hand side pod of Daniel Ricciardo, his Red Bull teammate. Ricciardo picks up a left rear puncture in that contact, and then yes, the radiator was already damaged by that contact with his teammate. He spins in the middle of the circuit, probably on his own radiator water. Everybody manages to avoid him, quite thankfully. However, that was the end of Daniel Ricciardo's race. Daniel Ricciardo, first car out of the 2017 Hungarian Grand Prix. Replay on board with Lewis Hamilton during the start, just being very conservative, a little bit too conservative, I would say. He actually lost both positions to both of the Red Bulls, but then Verstappen took Ricciardo out from in front of him, so that was a freebie. However, Hamilton now still stuck behind Max Verstappen in P5, down one position from his starting grid spot. On board with Max Verstappen now off the start. This is going to be interesting. Verstappen doesn't get a bad start, but he doesn't quite have the best second phase of the getaway. However, he outbrakes both of the Mercedes into turn 1, which forces him out wide. He nearly collects Kimi Räikkönen actually into turn 1. Now Verstappen behind Bottas and marginally behind Ricciardo into turn 2. Verstappen locks up that left front wheel, and then he just punts himself directly into the side pod of his teammate. That certainly will not have made him very popular on the Red Bull pit wall. Replays with Ricciardo now off the grid. Ricciardo did get a pretty good start. Tries to outbrake Hamilton into turn 1. Can't quite do it because Hamilton covers off the inside line. And Ricciardo minds his own business on the inside, gets a good run on Lewis Hamilton out of turn 1, and he takes that position. He also overtakes his teammate. However, minding his own business online into turn 2, he gets punted by Verstappen, and that's it. Immediate damage to the radiator, terminal damage immediately. And then Ricciardo spins on his own oil and water. Yep. And that's it. Turn 2 incident involving cars 3 and 33. Ricciardo and Verstappen officially under investigation. Here on board with Julian Palmer, who gets a little bit different angle of this incident. He is going to be avoiding Ricciardo as he spins in the middle of the racetrack, I would assume. How does this look? Wow. Ricciardo loses it directly in front of Julian Palmer. That was pretty quick thinking from the Englishman to avoid that accident, because that could have been a scary one. Now in replay, Daniel Ricciardo walking back in toward the pit lane. Yeah, he's not smiling right now. This man is known for having a smile permanently etched across his face, however, it's not here at this moment. Race control has now gone out to say that there is oil on the track in turn 3. I am not at all surprised about that. The order at this moment is the safety car, Sebastian Vettel, Kimi Räikkönen, Valtteri Bottas, Max Verstappen, and Lewis Hamilton, your top 5. The McLaren of Fernando Alonso is still running in P7, and the second McLaren of Stoffel van Dorn is currently in P9. I'm led to believe that the water in the radiators of an F1 car is just normal water. There's no point of having antifreeze compounds or any alcohols in there, simply because these cars are never going to be running in temperatures below freezing. So, yeah, just plain old water in these radiators. Yeah, those McLarens, they are currently in the points. However, I won't exactly hold my breath on them staying there, particularly, well, Honda reliability. However, straight line speed is not quite as important here at the Hungaroring, so it's possible that Fernando Alonso might be able to hold some guys off behind, even though Sergio Perez in that Force India is coming on strong. On board here with the safety car, Bernd Mailander sawing away at the wheel. He's going as fast as he possibly can. However, these F1 cars, the drivers are just twiddling their thumbs at the moment. Turn 1 incident between Grosjean and Hülkenberg noted, according to Race Control. That usually doesn't mean anything in 2017. Looks like the safety car is going to stay out for at least one more lap. We saw the marshals just spreading some sawdust or other drying agents across the circuit there at turn 3 just to help sop up some of that moisture. On board here with Max Verstappen, everything looks okay on his Red Bull RB13. The Saubers are running in the illustrious positions of P18 and P19. Ericsson is ahead of Wehrlein, however. Replay of the turn 1 incident between Hülkenberg and Grosjean. On board with Hülkenberg. Grosjean looks like he comes up the outside. Oh yes, Grosjean got a little bit of air there. Almost in replay of what we saw in 2005 between Villeneuve and Klein. However, Grosjean managed to land on all 4 wheels and no problem was there. And another replay of Daniel Ricciardo being punted off by Max Verstappen. Water pouring out of that Red Bull immediately, maybe a little bit of oil as well, because there are, of course, water and oil radiators in an F1 car at different positions in the car's general layout. I do have to say that is 100% on Max Verstappen. Now, he could have gotten away with that little maneuver and challenged Ricciardo into turn 4. However, he locked up that left front. Cold tires and cold brakes, locking up, you lose at least 50% of your retardation and turning force when you lock up one of those front wheels. So, yep, that's only one way it could have ended, and that's the way it did end. Lights are out on the safety car as we come into Sector 3. Safety car is coming in on this lap. Sebastian Vettel now becomes the de facto safety car as he weaves and tries to get some more heat into his tires and brakes. Vettel puts the hammer down through turn 13, and we are racing again in Hungary. Across start-finish, the order on lap 6 is Vettel, Raikkonen, Bottas, Verstappen, Hamilton, Sainz, Alonso, Perez, Van Dorn, and Ocon, your top 10. Lewis Hamilton looking at Max Verstappen and Fernando Alonso looking at Carlos Sainz into turn 1. Verstappen getting around nobody. He maintains his position. Lewis Hamilton still behind. Hamilton challenging Verstappen into turn 2 up the outside. That's not going to work. However, will Hamilton be able to switch back for turn 4 or turn 5? Does not appear to be so. Lewis Hamilton maintains his 5th place at the moment. Coming into the very fast turn 4. Hamilton not able to keep up with Verstappen there. Verstappen able to take so much more apex speed at this point than Lewis Hamilton. The interval at the front, Vettel leads Kimi Räikkönen by 0.98 seconds at the moment, not quite out of DRS range from his teammate. However, Kimi will be told that there will be no ice cream if he tries to attack Sebastian Vettel. Daniel Ricciardo has made it back to the Red Bull garage, and he is absolutely furious at this point, and that is understandable. It's never good when a car takes another car out that is painted in the same livery. There are going to be fireworks and acrimony in the Red Bull pits after this Grand Prix, I am sure. Fastest lap of the race, as you might expect, goes to Sebastian Vettel, 123.137, fastest in sectors 1 and 3. Working lap 7, the gap is now 1.2 seconds at the front. Vettel is out of DRS attack range from his teammate. and everybody holding station here into turn 1. The two Renaults running together, Palmer leading Hulkenberg for positions 11 and 12. Palmer maintains that position for the moment. A very sad Australian fan was just seen on television there, wiping what apparently are tears from her eyes with an Australian flag. Obviously, some Daniel Ricciardo fans are quite disappointed. Hamilton Radio. 10 seconds, not stop-go penalty, a time penalty has been added for Max Verstappen for causing a collision. 10-second penalty, that will be added to the overall race time. Jos Verstappen sitting there in the Red Bull garage rolling his eyes at that. DRS enabled here on lap 8. Clarification on Verstappen's penalty. It is a 10-second time penalty, so there are two ways in which it could be administered. It could be added to the overall race time, or Red Bull could elect to serve that penalty in a pit stop. Therefore, they could stop the car, set a stopwatch for 10 seconds, and then after 10 seconds, do the tire change and do the pit stop as normal, or it will be added to the overall race time for Max Verstappen. We'll see what Red Bull decide to do with that. Grosjean and Hulkenberg are officially under investigation now for their contact into turn 1, in which Grosjean left the ground momentarily. That Honda engine deal between Sauber and Honda, that was called off during the week. So Sauber will not be running Honda engines in 2018. They are going to continue their supply contract with Ferrari. That is good news for Sauber indeed. Sebastian Vettel resets fastest lap 122.512. The lap times will continue to come down as the fuel burns off. Yes, I would agree. However, I'm not entirely sure if Fairline or Ericsson would get Das Boot at Sauber. I would say it should be Ericsson that gets kicked out. However, Ericsson, I do believe, brings a whole bunch of money to the team, and that would probably not be a great idea to get rid of your main source of money, at least on the driver's side. But that Ferrari engine deal, that certainly means that Ferrari have a say over at least one of the drivers in that Sauber, and yeah, Charles Leclerc might be the answer for that problem. Obviously, Ferrari very interested in him. He's a member of their Young Driver Academy, and he's already been connected with a race seat at the Ferrari factory team, perhaps even to replace Kimi Räikkönen. However, he does need to cut his teeth in Formula One first, and Sauber is a great place to do that. Yes, I've got to agree. The old F1 games, Sauber was a place that I would always go to. I remember F1 2001, the Sony version, not the EA version. I actually won the championship a couple times in the Sauber playing as Kimi. So, yeah, Sauber was a nice team to drive for in those games, and I've always been a Sauber fan. I do really miss the blue and yellow livery, though. In another egregious commercial break here. Let's check this upload. Yep, we're still running here. So I can live stream and upload in parallel. That's a good thing. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to do it, and I was going to have to tell all of you that there was going to be no live commentary of this race, but that did not come to fruition, so awesomeness. Yes, both of the Ferraris are pulling away from the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas. Max Verstappen now minding his own business in P4. Lewis Hamilton does not appear to have an answer for the Dutchman at the moment. Carlos Sainz also still holding off Fernando Alonso for P6. And speak of the devil and he shall come. Still an ad break here on NBCSN, but I've got a commercial now for a local Honda dealer. Nope, not doing it. Never, ever, ever will I buy a Honda. Sorry. Sauber fell apart after the takeover with BMW. BMW took the team over and they turned it into a factory team, and they put in a lot of money, but they also added their own proprietary technology. So when Peter Sauber got the team back from BMW at the end of 2009, he wasn't able really to capitalize on that investment from BMW because they pulled all of their resources out of the team. As well, they're entitled to do that because it's their resources, but it left Sauber basically with nothing. So the 2010 and 2011 seasons, they were effectively nowhere, but they did start to come on again in 2012. Sergio Perez there making his debut with the team, and he put in really a fantastic drive in Malaysia 2012. I do remember he almost won the race from Fernando Alonso, but ever since then, Sauber have been on the back foot. It's got to do with money for the most part, as everything does in Formula One. If there's a problem, follow the money. If there's a lot of success, follow the money as well, and Sauber just don't really have the big cash reserves when you compare to the teams at the sharp end of the grid, your Ferraris and your Mercedes, or even your McLarens, even though they don't really know how to spend their money these days. Sauber's golden age, I would say, was the early 2000s when they had really good drivers. Their car was effectively a year-old Ferrari chassis with just a couple more bits and bobs added to it to make it a technically different car. They also had engines badged as either Asia Tech or what other engines did they badge? I think they actually badged the engines as Petronas engines as well. Obviously, Petronas was their title sponsor for a long time, but they were Ferrari engines as well. So Sauber had that Ferrari brain trust behind them. They were the effective Ferrari B team for a whole bunch of years, and essentially Haas has sort of become a Ferrari B team. Sauber, however, with that extended engine deal, they might be in for some good times again if Ferrari are willing to invest a little bit more in that company and in that outfit. Sauber currently running year-old Ferrari engines, so they're running 2016 spec power units. However, if Sauber could get the latest Ferrari engines, they will obviously see an uptick in performance. Up a local yellow in Sector 1. Trying to find an explanation as to why that was there. It appears to have been stubbed down. Daniel Ricciardo in an interview here. He is having some trouble finding some words. However, he does sort of have a smile back on his face already. He just says there was never a pass there. So obviously, we all know where he pins the blame, and yeah, he's definitely right for blaming his teammate for that, because there was nowhere for Ricciardo or Verstappen to go in that incident. However, Verstappen did not help affairs by locking his left front under braking into turn 2. Turn 1 incident at the restart involving Alonso and Sainz under investigation. Not entirely sure what that's about. We'll see hopefully a replay here in a couple of moments. However, Alonso and Sainz now under investigation. Yes, Ricciardo did throw a few more shots across the bow of Max Verstappen, and again, I think they are 100% deserved on the part of Verstappen because, well, you ran into your teammate. That is the golden rule of all sporting competitions. Don't mess up the job of your teammate. In replay, Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz on the restart into Turn 1. What happens here? There's contact between Alonso and Sainz on the exit of Turn 1. Alonso gets pushed out wide. The left rear of Sainz's car made contact with the right front of Alonso's car. However, both cars stayed on the ground. I'm not entirely sure why there's an investigation here. Yes, rubber-to-rubber contact, it is dangerous because it doesn't take much for these cars to get airborne in a situation like that. But I don't really think investigation's warranted for that. Yes, Porsche in F1, that would be something that would draw a whole bunch of attention. However, considering they've just pulled out of Le Mans, I don't think we're going to see Porsche in F1 in the foreseeable future. What is interesting, however worrying, is the fact that Mercedes are going to pull out of DTM in favor of funding a fully fledged factory Formula E effort. Now, electric racing. Yeah, it's a very touchy subject, and no one's particularly happy about it. However, there is a place for a series like Formula E. It's new technology. We're developing electric cars for the road and for the racetrack. So, yeah, if you want to increase road technologies, in other words, what's available to everyday people, yeah, racing is probably a good place to develop that. But Mercedes, arguably the most prestigious name in automobiles today, now getting involved in Formula E. Great for Formula E, that's for sure. However, what does that mean for the future of more traditional racing? If you've got a big name like Mercedes now investing a whole bunch of resources into electric cars, does that mean that we're on our way to an electric Formula One? I really, really hope not. However, a possibility now is existing for, at some point in the future, perhaps the not too distant future, we could see an increased electrical presence in top-level motorsport. I really hope that doesn't happen anytime soon. However, there is now a possibility of that. Coupling that idea with Halo, which has been rammed down our throats courtesy of the FIA, once again messing everything up for 2018, what does this mean for the future of this sport? I'm not very optimistic at this point. No further action on the incident between Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz through turn 1 at the restart. Good decision. I did not really see the reason for the investigation in the first place. Two guys running close together, they make contact, and then they both take appropriate evasive action. No action on that incident. Yes, Mitchell, the FIA, their only reaction is a knee-jerk reaction. I can't think of a single thing that the FIA has ever done that was not a knee-jerk reaction. This Halo thing, it's a knee-jerk reaction to incidents that, yes, they did happen, and unfortunately, in other categories, debris coming into the cockpit has cost drivers their lives. However, those incidents are so rare, and to institute a series-wide rule change, to change the design of all of the cars on a whim, simply because of accidents that are incredibly rare, makes absolutely no sense. Felipe Massa, had he a halo on his Ferrari F60 in 2009 at the Hungarian, would that spring not have hit him? No, I'm pretty sure that spring would have passed directly through the halo. Jules Bianchi in 2014 at Suzuka, would a halo have saved him? No. Absolutely not. Ayrton Senna, even, with the wheel coming into the cockpit and hitting him in the head. Would the halo have saved him? Probably not, because you're dealing with not only the weight of the wheel and the momentum it has as it's flying, but the wheel was forced into the cockpit by the wall. So if the wheel was able to do as much damage to the helmet and his head, I'm pretty sure it would have blasted the halo out of position as well. So do we have any incidents where a halo might have saved a driver? Let's think of IndyCar. Dan Weldon, nope. Justin Wilson, probably not, because that little piece of debris managed to hit Wilson directly on top of the head as it came down from above. So a halo, would that have deflected the nose cone? No, probably not. We can go back in time a little bit. Riccardo Paletti, 1982 Canadian Grand Prix. Fire. No. Halo, in fact, might have made it even more difficult to try and get him out of the car. Incidents where drivers have survived. 1976 at the Nürburgring, Niki Lauda. Car's on fire. Had he a halo on that car, I don't think Niki Lauda would be with us today. Gerhard Berger, 1989, Imola, another fiery accident. Had he a halo on that car, would the marshals have been able to get the fire extinguishers into the cockpit and create that space around Berger where the flames are not looking at him? I don't know, but I cannot think of any definitive case where a halo would have saved a driver. Absolutely not. And the true factor that's coming in saying that this halo is not a good idea is the fact that they have increased the minimum exit time for the drivers with the halo fitted. As the regulations currently are, a driver must be able to get out of the car within 5 seconds. And obviously that's to take care of fire and anything like that. Thankfully fires don't happen so often anymore, but it is still a distinct possibility, and the drivers wear fire suits for a reason. So 5 seconds is the current margin. They've increased that to 10 seconds to get out of the car. I don't know about you, but if it's going to take me a minimum of 10 seconds to get out of 1500 degree flames, I don't know how confident I feel in what I'm doing anymore. The regulation as it stands, the only thing that the driver needs to remove to get out of the car is the steering wheel, and technically speaking, he doesn't even have to remove that if he really needs to get out. It's markedly easier to get out of one of these cars if you remove the steering wheel, but it is still possible to get out if you cannot. However, with the halo over the cockpit, the driver's window to get out of the cockpit is now narrower, and if the halo is somehow damaged in an accident and it becomes an obstruction to the cockpit, it could even conceivably trap the driver in the car, which would be absolutely terrible. We won't see the true ramifications of that decision unless we have a serious incident, and I certainly hope we never see one of those incidents. But if we have a severe incident that involves fire or a rollover or both, and the driver is trapped in the car due to the halo, that's going to be all we need. Roman Grosjean in and out of the pits for a stop. He puts the soft tires on. Good stop by the Haas boys. Absolutely, Aiden, I agree. The worst possible situation with this Halo business is going to be a rollover. And remember, these cars are not designed to be upside down. Roman Grosjean going slowly here through the chicane. He's being told to stop the car. What's happening here? Roman Grosjean, he's got a wheel coming off. Left rear. Wheel nut is not on. Wheel nut is either not on or loose. That wheel is moving around quite a lot. Let's see a replay of this pit stop. Car gets released. The rear mechanics are waving. He has his arms crossed. That means there's a problem. They do not have the left rear wheel on that Haas. Yes, guy with the wheel gun, with the arms crossed, signaling the Lollipop Man. Lollipop Man did not hold the car, and Grosjean has stopped in Sector 2. He's pulled off. There's a crane there, and they're going to wheel that car out of danger. Don't think we have the need for a safety car here, just local yellows in Sector 2. That's a problem. That's a problem, boys. That's the fault of the guy on the Lollipop, unfortunately. The mechanic did signal. Yes, I agree. If the halo is damaged, and then the halo starts to impinge into the cockpit, when carbon fiber breaks, it tends to shatter, and when something shatters, it breaks into shards, and those shards are very sharp, and we all know that carbon fiber can cut tires very easily. Tires are a whole lot tougher than human, so if a halo becomes damaged, and it just starts to impinge into the cockpit area, that's basically a spear going straight for the driver's face. Yes, Palmer fell behind Hulkenberg, and he has now fallen a further 5 seconds arrears of his teammate. Yes, meanwhile, at the sharp end of the field, Sebastian Vettel still leads Kimi Raikkonen to the tune of just over 2 seconds. Valtteri Bottas a further 7 seconds behind Raikkonen in P3. Max Verstappen holding P4, and Lewis Hamilton still mired in P5, unable to do anything about the Red Bull in front. The FIA wants to stop flying wheels because of Henry Surtees. That's it. The Henry Surtees accident, as unfortunate as it was a 1 in a million thing. It never happened before, and I doubt it'll ever happen again. That's the knee-jerk reaction. That's why we have this whole business with Halo. We've been talking about it since that accident back in 2009 during a Formula 2 race, what was then called Formula 2. It's effectively Formula Renault 1600. However, ever since that day, and then particularly after Felipe Massa's accident in Hungary the following weekend, we've been talking about some form of cockpit protection. and halo is what they came up with. I can't think of a more idiotic solution for cockpit protection. If you want to do something that's going to maintain the DNA of Formula One, it's not halo. If you go back and you look at cars from the 60s and 70s, it was not uncommon for the teams to run a rather large windscreen. And something like that is effectively what the Red Bull Aeroscreen concept was. It did provide frontal protection to the cockpit, it would deflect debris, but it would maintain the cockpit opening. So there's nothing obstructing the driver. The vision is not really obstructed, and the cockpit opening is unchanged. With the halo, you have this longitudinal area to either side of the cockpit, which is now raised. So effectively the cockpit sides get higher. So you have to lift yourself up more in order to get out of the cockpit. And if you rolled over, you're not going to be able to do that. So having a driver clamber out of an overturned car in the manner in which they can at the moment will be impossible with the halo. With something like the Aero screen, that would not be a problem. Even with the Aero shield that Ferrari tested at the last Grand Prix at Silverstone, Sebastian Vettel said he didn't like it because of visual distortions through the glass. However, that's something that could be honed with more development. However, all it took was Sebastian Vettel to say that one comment, and the FIA said, no, we're not doing it. So, knee-jerk reactions in both directions, both to add things as well as to discount other potential solutions. Potential problems up in P1 for Sebastian Vettel. He is complaining to the pits that his steering is pulling to the left down the straights, and he says that it's getting worse. Are we seeing the beginnings of a suspension collapse on that Ferrari? Remember, identical tire failures on the left front suspension on both of the Ferraris last time out at Silverstone. Do Ferrari have suspension issues? Let's wait and see. I don't know if Sebastian could have damaged that suspension by running hard over a curb or something earlier on in the race. However, he is complaining about the steering on lap 27 of 70. That's not a good prognosis here. We will watch that story. Kimi Räikkönen is gaining little by little on his teammate. Yeah, we need to see an onboard here with Sebastian Vettel if we can see any obvious signs of damage or fatigue on that front suspension. However, these carbon suspensions, they don't really buckle, they just shatter when they fail. So if Sebastian does have a suspension problem, we probably won't really know about it until something goes bang. However, let's hope that doesn't happen because he's currently leading the race. Yes, Vettel continuing to lose time to Raikkonen to the tune of about a tenth of a second per lap. However, the TV graphics are showing us the gap between Hamilton and Verstappen. We really don't care about that at the moment. We want to see what's going on at the sharp end of the field. What's going on with Sebastian Vettel and that Ferrari? Is his suspension okay? We really need to see that. Gap is coming down massively now between Raikkonen and Vettel. It's gone down by 0.2 of a second in the last 10 seconds or so. We really need to see that onboard with Vettel. We're seeing onboard on the nose of Kimi Raikkonen at the moment. Raikkonen is right there. There is the Ferrari in front of the Ferrari, and yeah, how's Vettel's car behaving through these long corners here? Medium speed, coming into turn 14. Is he fighting any obvious signs of imbalance? Not really. The car looks pretty well centered here. However, how is it down the straight? Is it crabbing at all? Here's Sebastian Vettel coming down, start-finish. Car is not crabbing from what I can see, so the car is tracking true. However, what's that steering wheel doing? We really need an onboard with Vettel, guys. Raikkonen is gaining on his teammate to the tune of 2.5 tenths per lap at the moment. Trying to take a look at Vettel's front suspension. Looks fine there. What's the rear doing? Can't really see the rear suspension very well, but the front generally looks okay. Can't really see the rear from any of these exterior shots. Everything looks square on the car. I don't see any wheels out of alignment, obviously. And the balance still looks pretty good. However, we are watching this very, very closely. Vettel still riding the curbs, no problem. Just wondering if I can see anything. I don't really think so. Williams pit stop. That is for Lance Stroll. And Mercedes now in the pit lane. I assume this is going to be for Valtteri Bottas, and indeed it is. Bottas takes the pit limiter here. Takes a tear off from his visor. Into the pits for Bottas, off of the super softs and onto the softs. Somewhat slower stop for the Mercedes men, however still a good stop nonetheless. Bottas rejoins the fast lane of the pit lane. Coming down here to rejoin the racetrack. Hamilton leapfrogs him for the moment. However, Hamilton still has a stop to make. Bottas rejoins the racetrack in P5. Gap between Vettel and Raikkonen now just over 1 second. In replay, the stop of Valtteri Bottas, what are we going to see? Do we have a problem? Yes, we have a problem on the left front. That's how you take care of a problem in a pit stop. You let the mechanic go back and try again. You don't release the car prematurely. Sebastian Vettel radio saying the fronts are not in a healthy state, and he's asking the team, do not extend this stint. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton takes the pit lane here. Into the box, right on the marks, easy as you like, onto the soft tires, and good stop by the Mercedes men. That was quick and much better than the pit stop for Bottas. Lewis Hamilton rejoins in P5, where he had been running prior to the stop. Verstappen now in P3, obviously with the stop to make. We'll also see if Red Bull try to make any quick repairs to that car, since he did make contact with his teammate on lap 1. Ferrari now coming into the pits. Is this for Raikkonen or for Vettel? We shall see. Sebastian Vettel is in. That's not the angle we wanted. We wanted to see the front of that car, and of course the FOM broadcasters show us the rear of the car. Is there suspension problems on this Ferrari? I still can't tell, and we need an onboard shot to really see what he's doing with the steering down the straights. Vettel says it's pulling to the left. We don't know. Max Verstappen up to P2 on the pit stop rotation. Kimi Raikkonen for the moment inherits the race lead. Valtteri Bottas resets fastest lap, 121.656. On board here with, I believe, Kimi Raikkonen. We're looking at the nose of a Ferrari. Kimi Raikkonen comes to the pit lane, and also we have radio from Raikkonen. He says, "What the beep is this guy doing?" I can't tell what car it was. However, Kimi giving us more colorful radio. Raikkonen now into the pits. Making the stop. Stop showing us pretty people, FOM. Show us the actual pit stop. Where is Sebastian Vettel? Max Verstappen takes the lead on the pit stop rotation. Raikkonen is still trundling down the pit lane here, just coming to the limiter line. Where is Sebastian Vettel? It's close. However, I do expect Sebastian Vettel to take the lead, and indeed he does. It's that close. There's about a car length between the two Ferraris at the moment. However, is Vettel's car healthy? Lewis Hamilton apparently having some radio problems. The pits cannot hear him. They've switched to the backup radio system, and it's still not working. That was a good stop for the Ferrari boys, meanwhile, for Kimi Raikkonen. However, Raikkonen was complaining on the radio about Paul di Resta sort of dawdling around there as Raikkonen was lapping him. Was that the difference between Raikkonen being able to come out in the lead? We don't know. Yes, more Mercedes ads and miniature NASCAR drivers plugging motor oil. Great. Hamilton still running in P5 where he was before the pit stops. Currently the order is Verstappen, Vettel, Raikkonen, Bottas, Hamilton, Sainz, Alonso, Van Dorn, Ocon, and Hülkenberg, your top 10. Yes, the second half of the season is really, really cool because, well, we've got a lot of great tracks. We've got Spa, we've got Monza. I mean, those two races alone are worth the entire balance of the season. So, yeah, Spa, obviously the next race, and we have a little while to wait before that, but it's an awesome track, and with these 2017 cars, it's going to be really, really fast. Yes, if we get a Ferrari victory in Italy, it's going to be a really cool day. However, Spa is going to be really cool as well. Spa and Monza both about engine power, but also aero efficiency. Could Williams be strong at these places? I don't know. The Williams cars are really fast in a straight line, as are the Force Indias, so perhaps a dark horse result at both of those races. And yes, Aiden, I thought that way as well when I was in school. I would always really look forward to the Belgian Grand Prix, but I also knew that it meant school was right around the corner if it hadn't started already once again. So, yeah, the Belgian Grand Prix used to be bittersweet, but now I'm working full-time, there's no school anymore, so summer doesn't exist for me anymore, so it makes no difference. Meanwhile, at the chicane in Sector 2, Fernando Alonso fighting with Carlos Sainz. Sainz forces Alonso off the track. Alonso will no doubt be getting on the radio complaining about how ridiculous it is. However, the Honda is still running. Max Verstappen still leading here. He has not made a pit stop. How much deeper can he go into this race? He's on those super soft tires. They're 39 laps old, counting the reconnaissance laps to the grid. And yes, I certainly do not miss AP summer homework. I took 2 AP classes my senior year of high school, and yeah, they were a lot of work. Toto Wolff looking pensive in the Mercedes garage. A win does not look to be on the cards for the Silver Arrows today. However, which Ferrari will take that win? We will see. If Vettel's car is healthy, I do fully expect Vettel to be winning this Hungarian Grand Prix. However, if that suspension is not okay, who knows what could happen. Alonso trying Carlos Sainz into turn 1. He overdoes it, and then he has to give the position back. And into turn 2 for Alonso and Sainz. Alonso, does he manage to get it done? Yes, he does, through turn 2 and then into turn 3. Alonso finally overtaking Carlos Sainz. Alonso running P9. Van Dorn is all the way up in P6. How about that? Van Dorn has not made a pit stop, however. Raikkonen asking Ferrari, hold on, Vettel radio. Raikkonen asking Ferrari if he can push Vettel because the Mercedes are catching him, and indeed they are. Bottas now just 2.3 seconds behind Kimi Raikkonen. However, if Sebastian Vettel is in a position to hold his position and to then re-inherit the lead of the race when Verstappen makes his pit stop, are Ferrari willing to make that switch? I don't know. We will see. If Sebastian is having handling issues, though, like he is, will he be in a position to maintain his lead and also maintain the pace? We'll see. If one thing is certain, though, it is that Ferrari will not want to forfeit this race win, no matter who gets it. So, if there does come a time for Ferrari to tell Sebastian, hey, Kimi is faster than you, we might see a little bit of fireworks here. Gap is now under 5 seconds between Vettel, and Hamilton. So 5 seconds covering positions 2 through 5. Sebastian Vettel getting close to the pit wall there the last time passing the pits, perhaps having a little trouble with that radio, as we know, just trying to read the pit board a little bit better. As far as I'm aware, Lewis Hamilton is running without a radio. Verstappen on those super soft tires, they're 42 laps old. Again, we're counting the reconnaissance laps to the grid. When will he pit? It's got to be soon. You know it's got to be soon because this track is quite difficult on tires. So Verstappen's tires cannot be in a good state at this moment. But for the moment, he continues to lead the Grand Prix to the tune of 10.4 seconds over Sebastian Vettel. Meanwhile, Kimi Räikkönen is 1.6 seconds behind his teammate. And at this point, what do Mercedes do with their drivers? Do they try to swap positions to help Hamilton in the championship? We're not quite close enough to the end of the race to really start thinking about this. Räikkönen radio. Räikkönen getting testy on the radio. He is saying, whatever you're doing, you're putting me under massive threat from the Mercedes for no reason. So Kimi does feel that he is faster than Sebastian. When do we hear that radio message? If we will hear that radio message. Ferrari, if you want to secure this race win, you might have to swap positions because Mercedes are coming. Interesting radio transmission from Red Bull to Verstappen. They told him any sudden drop from the left front tire, you tell us, please. And Verstappen says, I will. Are they concerned about the tire integrity at this point, being so many laps on those tires? Maybe. Or is that a coded message of some kind? I don't really know. And we are back in the commercials here on NBCSN. Will Verstappen serve his 10-second penalty in the pits? That is a reasonable question to be asking. Now, will Red Bull decide to hold him before working on the car? That'll probably put Verstappen back into P6. P5 or P6 is where Verstappen would be rejoining. And right on schedule, we've got a pit stop for Max Verstappen, and I can't see what's happening. So, will Red Bull serve this penalty right now? Verstappen already on timing and scoring is dropped into P5. How long is he stationary? How long does timing and scoring say that he is in the pits? That'll answer our question as to whether or not they're serving that penalty now, or they're just going to wait for it to be added to the overall race time, wherever Verstappen finishes. Verstappen is out of the pits, according to timing and scoring. That makes me believe that they have not served the penalty on the pit stop, and they will just wait for it to be added to the overall race time. Stoffel Vandoorne also in the pits from P6. Hulkenberg inherits P6 from the McLaren man. Max Verstappen shown out on timing and scoring out of the pit lane, still very much in the race in P5. Stoffel Vandoorne classified P7, now drops down to P11 and P12. Vandoorne in the pits for quite a while there, however he's now shown as out and apparently rejoining in P12. This brings Alonso up into P7, Hülkenberg up into P6. Max Verstappen back out on track in P5. He has got himself a healthy 15 or so seconds back to Nico Hülkenberg. So at this point, he would still finish in P5 even with the 10-second penalty. Did Verstappen serve that 10-second penalty in the pit stop or not? I cannot tell just from timing and scoring. So Verstappen did serve that penalty in the pit stop. Thanks for the clarification. I can't see that on timing and scoring. I just see when a car is in the pits and out of the pits. Apparently, offline radio transmission from Ferrari to Vettel telling him to stay off the curbs. That's not a good idea. So Vettel now having to drive this car in a little bit of a hobbling manner to try and keep that suspension healthy for as long as possible, hopefully to the end of the Grand Prix. Hamilton radio. Lewis Hamilton apparently has his radio back, and he had volumes to say to the pits. He said that his last set of tires were fine before the pit stop, and there was no reason to bring him in. However, he was unable to tell the mechanics that because he had no radio. However, Mercedes telling him to keep his head down. The race is going to come to them. Hamilton saying, hey, I've got a lot of pace, let me buy Valtteri. Mercedes saying, we're looking into it. So, of course, that means, yeah, you're not getting by Valtteri anytime soon. Meanwhile, at the front end of the field, Vettel leads Raikkonen by 1.2 seconds, and Vettel being told to stay off the curb. So Kimi is still gaining on his teammate. At some point, Ferrari will have to make a decision. When will they make that decision? Will they make that decision at all? We remain to see that. Bottas, however, is closing on Raikkonen. Into turn 1 on board with Esteban Ocon or Sergio Perez. I can't tell their helmets apart anymore. They're both pink. That was Perez on Palmer for P9. Ocon following now. Lewis Hamilton has overtaken Valtteri Bottas for P3. Was this an orchestrated move? Oh, yes, it was. Bottas stops, essentially, in turn 1, allowing Hamilton by. So Hamilton is now released onto the back of Kimi Raikkonen. How long will it take Hamilton to catch up to the number 2 Ferrari man? I don't know. However, it probably won't be for very long. So Mercedes are now fighting for this race win, and they're doing it very aggressively. They have released Hamilton into the path of Kimi Raikkonen, and Hamilton is really gaining on that Ferrari very, very quickly. I expect Hamilton to be trying an overtake within the next lap or two at this point. The gap between Raikkonen and Hamilton is currently about 2.3 seconds, and that's going to come down by about a second a lap at this point. Ferrari once again telling Sebastian Vettel to avoid the curbs. However, the pace is good, they say in the next breath. That's not too confusing. Hamilton really gaining on both of the Ferraris to the tune of 0.8 per lap. Kimi Räikkönen really trying hard at this point. You can see he's throwing that Ferrari through the corners. However, Hamilton is on the way. The race win is slipping out of your grasp, Ferrari. You've got to do something here. Which car is faster? The interval at the front is 1.1 seconds between your two guys. Somebody needs to give here. Either Vettel needs to be able to pick up the pace, or he needs to allow Kimi through with the healthy car. You've now got 20 laps to the end of this Grand Prix. Your pit stops are done with. You need to get into a position to consolidate this win, because Hamilton has pace, but he won't have pace forever. If you can manage to hold him off for the next 5 or 6 laps, Hamilton's tires will start to cry enough, and then you can consolidate your position. But right now, Hamilton is coming, as is Verstappen onto Valtteri Bottas. The interval is still about 10 seconds. However, Verstappen is also on the way here. Nico Hülkenberg into the pits. What are we seeing here in replay? We see the pit stop and a very slow change on that right front tire. Looks like the wheel nut is jammed. Wheel nut absolutely jammed there. They finally get that right front wheel off and they get the tires changed, but a very slow stop due to that problem for Nico Hülkenberg. Meanwhile, at the sharp end, Lewis Hamilton visually closer now to Kimi Räikkönen. The gap between those two is now down to just 1.2 seconds. Hamilton will probably have DRS on the next lap. This is a disaster for Kimi Räikkönen's race. Hamilton is easily going to take second place at this rate. And at this point, I think it's even too late for Ferrari to try and swap positions, because in so doing, they're probably going to lose second place to Lewis Hamilton no matter what happens. So at this point, it's just a question of which driver do they want to finish third. Yes, we are in another one of the interminable ad breaks. You can see positions 1, 2, and 3 in the same camera shot. Vettel, Räikkönen, and Hamilton. Hamilton is going to be taking Kimi Räikkönen any time now. I wouldn't even be surprised if it happens down the start-finish straight with DRS assistance, because the gap now is coming down. They say it's 1.3 seconds. It looks a little bit closer than that. SimRacing604, I am uploading my review of Formula 79 by Race Sim Studio. That'll be up at noon Eastern Time. Yes, Bottas has given up the fight here. His tires are probably starting to go through their graining phase here midway through the stint. 20 laps to go before the end of the Grand Prix. I think Ferrari have essentially forfeited their win at this point. Hamilton is coming on very strong. The gap between he and Räikkönen, 1.3 seconds. It has stabilized a bit, however. For a moment here in the side-by-side, NBC Sports said that we were currently working lap 450 of 70. Yes, Ferrari have picked up the pace a little bit. However, Hamilton is now basically within DRS range of Kimi Räikkönen. 1.1 seconds, now 1.067 seconds is that real-time gap between Räikkönen and Hamilton. Bottas radio. Bottas was told to stay close to Lewis so they could re-invert the cars. What does that mean? They're going to swap positions again between the Mercedes drivers? That doesn't make any sense. However, Bottas has dropped back considerably from his teammate. He's 3.6 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton now 0.9 of a second behind Kimi Räikkönen. That is within DRS range. Does Hamilton have DRS down the start-finish straight? We will see. Bottas, however, is visibly slower than the other Mercedes car. And some jiggling heels on the Mercedes and Ferrari pit walls. Lewis Hamilton is really coming on strong here to Kimi Räikkönen. Does he have DRS down start finish? He does not. Hamilton radio. Hamilton saying it's really hard to get close to Kimi Räikkönen. That's the dirty air. Mercedes reminding Hamilton that he does have the overtake button available. Meanwhile, in replay, Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg outbraking himself into turn one, trying to bring the fight to Kevin Magnussen. He can't quite do it. The positions remain unchanged. That fight was for P11. Magnussen has it and Hülkenberg wants it. The gap is 0.5 of a second. Meanwhile, Sebastian Vettel still driving well and driving very smoothly, avoiding the curbs as we can see. However, he does murder the curbs on the outside there pretty heavily with that left side suspension, so maybe he's not too hindered. But those Ferraris are still very close. Räikkönen within 0.8 of a second now to his teammate, and he's gaining all the time through the low-speed corners. Räikkönen definitely happier with the balance in the low-speed sections. Räikkönen's really close to Vettel now as we come down start-finish. Räikkönen will have DRS down start-finish, however, will he use it? Can't see because we're just looking at the nose of that Ferrari. Yes, Räikkönen is on the DRS. He gets closer to his teammate. Now the gap is 0.6. However, he does not appear to be racy with the teammate at the moment. Hamilton has dropped back. The gap now 2.4 seconds between Hamilton and Vettel. The gap between Hamilton and Räikkönen is now 1.5 seconds. There is some lap traffic coming ahead. Daniel Kvyat is running in P13, and Sebastian and Kimi are approaching him. Obviously, he will be getting blue flags. However, if that traffic negotiation does not go well for one of the drivers, Kimi or Lewis could be the beneficiary. Going back to a commercial break here on NBCSN, things are really starting to hot up at the sharp end of the field. Räikkönen again with DRS on Sebastian Vettel down start finish. He won't get close enough, however. Gap at 0.7 between Vettel and Räikkönen. Lewis Hamilton holding his station at 1.3 seconds behind Kimi Räikkönen in P2. We're really getting into the point where Ferrari have to make a decision. Hamilton has dropped back. I think that's due to the tires now going into that graining phase as they're going about halfway through their usable life. But if Vettel can maintain the pace, sure, he deserves to win the race. But I'm not entirely sure he's maintaining the pace, and we have significant lap traffic ahead. The first car they will encounter is Daniel Kvyat. Will he be a torpedo? I doubt it. There are 3 lapped cars in front of Sebastian Vettel. They are Daniel Kvyat, Nico Hülkenberg, and Kevin Magnussen. That is P13 through 11. Blue flag now for Danny Kvyat. Will he allow the Ferrari through down start finish? I would say probably. Will he allow both Ferraris through is the question. I doubt it. Kimi Räikkönen really fighting that Ferrari now through turn 14. Blue flag for Danny Kvyat down start finish. Is he going to allow the Ferrari through into turn 1? Perhaps. However, it's not looking so likely at the moment. Vettel's not quite close enough, but that does mean your top 3 positions are bunched up once again. The gap between Hamilton and Räikkönen has now come down to 1 second exactly. Some sort of radio from Räikkönen to Ferrari. I can't hear what it is because we're in the side-by-side screen ad break at the moment. However, that gap between Räikkönen and Vettel is less than a second, 0.996. The gap between Räikkönen and Hamilton is now 0.862. On board with Lewis Hamilton, this ridiculous over-the-shoulder cam. However, he is close to the Ferrari. He will certainly have DRS down start finish. Yes, I can confirm. Räikkönen saying that he's ruining his tires. Nico Hülkenberg now getting the blue flags. Vettel with DRS due to his gap to Nico Hülkenberg. He uses it to overtake Hülkenberg. However, Hülkenberg now between Vettel and Räikkönen. Will Nico hold up Kimi? Hopefully not. And Hülkenberg taking the opportunity to jump out of Kimi Räikkönen's way. He's released. Lewis Hamilton now overtaking Nico Hülkenberg. Very nice driving from the German. He is a very sporting fellow, and he allows the top 3 cars through without any trouble. Kevin Magnussen, the next lapped car. Meanwhile, in replay, Max Verstappen has gone off in Sector 2. He's rejoined. He just got it a little bit wrong through the high-speed right-hander there. And now, Sebastian Vettel coming up to lap Kevin Magnussen. Expecting the blue flag treatment any time now for the Dane. Sebastian Vettel now unlapping himself from, well, lapping Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen allows both the Ferraris through. He slots in between Räikkönen and Hamilton. Magnussen also allowing the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton through. Mitchell, no, this is not my first stream. I have been doing live streams for most of the Grand Prix this year, and I'm very pleased with the reception we're getting, and 36 people are watching this one right now, so this is probably the most successful stream so far that I've done. I have also done podcasts for the Grand Prix that I have not covered in live stream. However, I've been live streaming every Grand Prix, so the podcasts have not been going up because there's no need. They'd be redundant. On board once again with Lewis Hamilton. He is maintaining that gap to Kimi Räikkönen here. 0.8 of a second. He'll have DRS once again down start-finish. Mercedes sounds healthy, as we would expect. Pretty much bulletproof reliability from these guys. Commentator's curse now coming in. Ferrari's also holding station in front. Lewis Hamilton really gaining on Kimi Räikkönen with that DRS assistance coming into turn 1. He's not close enough to attempt a move. However, Kimi is going to be absolutely furious. Hamilton will have DRS again down the infield straight between turns 3 and 4. Hamilton makes a mistake through turn 5. He catches a little bit of oversteer. He catches it. However, he did lose a little bit of time to Kimi Räikkönen. Looks like not so much, though. Gap now back up to a second. In replay, this oversteer moment for Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, the car got well out of shape. However, he technically never left the track. No problem there. But he did lose a little bit of time. However, he is 1.1 seconds behind Kimi Räikkönen now coming on to start-finish. He won't have that DRS assistance down the start-finish straight this time around. Ten laps to go in the 2017 Hungarian Grand Prix, and 10 laps to go in Formula 1 for a little bit as we head into the summer break. Next race, of course, the end of August from Spa. Formula 1 fans, we think of Spa and we think of Eau Rouge and Raidillon and Blanchimont. However, when the rest of the world thinks of Spa, they think of a place where you have scantily clad people and cucumbers. However, Spa is the next Grand Prix, and we'll all be looking forward to it in earnest. There appears to be some sort of commotion on the Ferrari pit wall. We saw Maurizio Arrivabene making some gesticulations there, as Italians do. However, we do wonder what Ferrari are discussing. 10 laps to go. Hamilton is now struggling with the rear end on that Mercedes. Saw through the exit of turn 1. He had a little bit of a power slide moment. Has Hamilton lost his opportunity to do something to Kimi Räikkönen? I don't know. Hamilton seems to be faster than Räikkönen through the middle sector. However, when it counts, coming into the DRS zone, Hamilton is effectively nowhere. Will he have DRS coming down start-finish this time? The gap is 0.95. Some very aggressive driving there from Kevin Magnussen. He pretty egregiously pushed Nico Hülkenberg off the circuit through turn 3. fully onto the grass for Nico Hulkenberg, and everybody will love the dirt being brought onto the racing line. Hamilton again with no DRS down the start-finish straight. He cannot get close enough to Kimi Räikkönen for the DRS zone. Eight laps to go. Lewis Hamilton not being able to keep up with Kimi Räikkönen in the same way he was a couple laps ago. Paul di Resta radio. Williams telling Paul di Resta that they have a problem and they need to retire. However, a solid drive from the Scotsman on his return to Formula One. However, that does appear to be game over for Paul di Resta. It's been good to see him back on the grid. We haven't seen him much during this Grand Prix, though. He has been running around at the tail end of the field. However, you can hardly blame him. This is his first drive in 4 years. However, Paul di Resta parks in his pit box and switches off the car, goes on those high stand dollies to be pushed back into the garage. Game over, Paul di Resta. Welcome back to Formula One. It's great to see you on the grid, and I do hope we see you again. Everybody, go vote for Driver of the Day, Paul di Resta. I've just voted for Paul di Resta for Driver of the Day. Even though he's retired and he ran at the back, it's his first Grand Prix since 2013, and I think he did a very good job on short notice. Meanwhile, yes, Alonso is in P6. We're waiting for the VTEC to cry enough, however, and with 5 laps to the end of the Grand Prix, it's about that time. There are a whole 54 seconds, almost an entire minute, between Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen, P5 to P6. Lewis Hamilton 1.6 seconds back from Sebastian Vettel. He is 1.6 seconds back from Kimi Räikkönen. He's 2.4 seconds back from Sebastian Vettel. Now 3.8 seconds back from Sebastian Vettel. Lewis Hamilton really slowed up big time. Lewis Hamilton is effectively nowhere on the TV screens looking at the Ferraris. There's Vettel, Räikkönen, and then Hamilton coming into the back of the picture. Hamilton really just gave up the fight at this point. Ferrari, you've gotten lucky here, maintaining position with the cars. 1.2 seconds is the gap between Räikkönen and Vettel. Of some perverse interest at this point is what's going to happen with Max Verstappen and Valtteri Bottas. Mercedes were talking of a switch earlier on in this race if Hamilton would be unable to catch Raikkonen within 5 laps. It has been 5 laps. However, there are so many lapped cars between Bottas and Hamilton that I don't think a switch is really a viable option at this point. Bottas needs to negotiate no less than 5 back markers at this point, and Verstappen is coming onto his gearbox. Marcus Ericsson currently between Bottas and Verstappen on the road. However, he's been given the blue flag treatment, and Verstappen now has DRS, courtesy of Marcus Ericsson, and he is gaining on Valtteri Bottas. 5 laps to go here. Will Verstappen try any sort of maneuvers for P4? We're talking about Max Verstappen here, so the answer to that question is yes. Stoffel Van Dorn now being lapped by Max Verstappen. He lets him by. And Verstappen is now free to take on Valtteri Bottas for P4. Hamilton has picked up the pace again. He is now back behind Kimi Räikkönen to the tune of 1.1 seconds. I wonder what was going on there. Was Hamilton holding back, assuming Mercedes were going to switch the cars around again, and then they told him, no, forget about it, try to attack Kimi? I don't know. But Hamilton now back 1.1 seconds behind Kimi Räikkönen. Four laps to go. Max Verstappen is right under the rear wing of Valtteri Bottas through turn 1. This is not over. Verstappen's got DRS again. What will we get? What will we get? Bottas making a mistake into turn 3. Verstappen also making a mistake into turn 3. Raikkonen radio. Ferrari telling Kimi Räikkönen, we don't know what Hamilton's going to do. Keep going as you are. That means hold position. Sebastian is faster than you. Yes, this certainly could have been a very good day for Red Bull, and they've only got themselves to blame for it. Verstappen took Ricciardo out in turn 1. Well, lap 1. Turn 2, lap 1. Two laps to go here in the 2017 Hungarian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen going sideways through the chicane. That is an absolutely glorious slow motion shot. Max Verstappen applying all sorts of opposite lock in between the two elements of the chicane. That is nice. That's really nice. No, it's not the fastest way through the corner, but man, it looks cool. Hamilton has dropped back again from Kimi Räikkönen. The gap is now 1.8 seconds. 2 laps to go. Is Hamilton trying to lull Kimi into a false sense of security and then do his best torpedo impersonation on the last lap? I don't know. I don't think Lewis Hamilton would do that. He's not that kind of a driver. But if Kimi makes a mistake, well, maybe. Ferrari is now coming up to lap Carlos Sainz in P7. Fernando Alonso is a further 57 seconds up the road relative to this. However, Carlos Sainz, the next obstacle for the Ferraris with 2 laps to go. Will he let them through? Probably. Carlos Sainz now getting the blue flag treatment, and he has allowed Sebastian Vettel through. And I assume he's doing the same for Kimi Räikkönen somewhere off camera. Kimi Räikkönen has made it through past Carlos Sainz. Meanwhile, Nico Hülkenberg in the pit lane. This looks terminal. And indeed it is. The car is up on the dollies, and they are pushing it back into the garage. Hülkenberg taking the gloves off and undoing the seat belts. No idea what the problem is for Nico Hülkenberg, but retiring on the last lap of the race, that's never a good thing. That's got to be so demoralizing for a driver. You've done the entire Grand Prix, more or less, and you have to retire. No result for a hard day's work. However, the final lap is now underway. Sebastian Vettel has exited turn 1. Kimi Räikkönen has followed suit. This looks to be a 1-2 finish for Ferrari. Despite not swapping positions, as might have been a more tenable solution earlier on in the race, they held station and they were able to convert this, barring any disaster at this point, into a 1-2 finish, with Sebastian Vettel gaining as many points as he possibly can on Lewis Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship. Also, 10-second penalty for Kevin Magnussen for forcing Nico Hülkenberg off the track earlier on. That will be applied after the race. Fernando Alonso still running in P6, awaiting for the gigantic cloud of smoke. Where is Kimi Räikkönen? Unless my eyes deceived me there. Yes, I must have missed Kimi Räikkönen. Yes, Räikkönen is covering covering Sebastian Vettel's gearbox there. Ferraris are running 1-2. False alarm. I saw Ferrari go by and I thought it was Vettel. It was Räikkönen. Hamilton still in P3. However, around the final corner, Sebastian Vettel comes to the line to take the checkered flag in the 2017 Hungarian Grand Prix. He is followed home by his Ferrari teammate Kimi Räikkönen. It is a 1-2 finish for the Scuderia. Lewis Hamilton finishes in P3. Valtteri Bottas takes the final podium position. Mercedes swapping positions in the final corner. Was that intentional? Or was that a mistake from Hamilton? It happened so quickly that I couldn't quite get a handle on what happened. However, on the final lap, Fernando Alonso takes fastest lap of the race, 1:20.182. Fernando Alonso, fastest lap officially. However, Sebastian Vettel, your race winner. Kimi Räikkönen in P2. Valtteri Bottas in P3. And Fernando Alonso officially crosses the line in P6. He slows down in front of his boys on the pit wall. Nice gesture by the very frustrated Spaniard. Honda has finished the Grand Prix in the points. Both McLarens finish in the points. P6 for Alonso, P10 for Van Dorn. Ferrari have definitely made up for the poor showing in the final laps of the race at Silverstone. A 1-2 finish running here in formation at the Hungaroring. That's what you want. Maranello, you have come back to fight. Replay with Lewis Hamilton. He's letting all sorts of lapped cars through. And obviously he is waiting for Valtteri Bottas to come up. This apparently was orchestrated. Yep, Bottas takes the position for P3. However, that dangerous to do on the last lap in the final corners like that? Hamilton really slowed down a lot. I would not be surprised if we see an investigation for that, because that was a big difference in speed relative to Hamilton and the cars around. And on the last lap of the race, are you expecting someone to do that? Not necessarily. Yes, the 2002 United States Grand Prix saw Rubens Barrichello win the race by 8 thousandths of a second. Michael Schumacher had led the race the entire time. However, Ferrari wanted to basically have a photo op at the line. They wanted the cars to cross the line together, and they did. However, it was misjudged ever so slightly, and Rubens Barrichello actually won the 2002 United States Grand Prix. Some clarification on Kimi Raikkonen's radio transmission about Paul di Resta earlier. He actually said, if he can't see what's around him, stay in the reporting stand. Obviously, Paul di Resta has been doing commentary for Formula One this year. However, he is racing. He raced today in Hungary. However, Kimi Raikkonen, less than amused with di Resta's driving skills, which might be a little bit rusty, all things considered. Stay in the reporting stand is the verdict from Mr. Raikkonen. I have maintained all season long that the world champion is going to be Sebastian Vettel. It just has that feel to it, and Vettel, of course, won the first race of the year, and most of the time, when a driver wins round one, he also wins it all, so that is going for Sebastian Vettel's favor at the moment. SimRacing604, thank you very much. Yes, nice drive by Sebastian Vettel, despite some convictions that perhaps Ferrari should have swapped positions. My Formula 79 review, the RSS Formula 79, that will be released at noon Eastern Time, US. So I need a few hours for it to process. I don't want it to go up in 360p. At very least, I want my videos to be in at least 720p when they go live. So by noon, it should be at least to that point. So that review is incoming. Also, VRC are going to release the FW18, the Williams car from 1997 today. So I will probably be posting some material with that car. No review on that car today. I don't have sufficient time left in the weekend to do that, but I will be working on that on and off throughout the week, so hopefully by midweek, maybe Thursday, or definitely Friday by latest, we will have a review of that car up as well. However, yep, great Grand Prix today. We'll stay with you here through the podium ceremony, and then I will be cutting it off because I do think VRC are releasing that FW18 as we speak, just like they did with the Renault 2 weeks ago. So yeah, we definitely have some incoming AC content for you. Thank you all for staying with me throughout this Grand Prix. It's always fun with the live chat dynamic going on. It's really, really fun. I think it's the FW18. No, it's the FW19. It is the FW19 that they are releasing. That's the 1997 car. I get confused with my Williams cars from the mid-90s because they were essentially identical and the difference in the name is one number. So yes, it's the FW19. FW19. And of course, it's another V10 car. Driver of the day has been declared Kimi Räikkönen. Kimi Räikkönen wins Driver of the Day. And he will say, "Wah." Hearing Sebastian Vettel, he's talking to one of the Ferrari guys here, the podium representative, and he's saying that something dropped on the rear and then the suspension was just out of kilter for the entire Grand Prix. He was holding the steering wheel to the right going in a straight line. However, that did not affect him too badly. The Constructors' Championship, Mercedes 357, Ferrari 318. Drivers' Championship, we see Sebastian Vettel consolidating his lead in the Drivers' Championship heading into the summer break with 202 points over Lewis Hamilton's 188. Valtteri Bottas jumps up not in the standings but in the points tally, 169 for Valtteri Bottas. P4 for Daniel Ricciardo. He obviously doesn't score any points today. Kimi Räikkönen with 116, Max Verstappen with 67, Sergio Perez with 56, Esteban Ocon with 45, Carlos Sainz with 35, and Nico Hülkenberg with 26. P11 for Felipe Massa. Of course, no points for him today because he did not participate in the race. And at the rear of the Drivers' Championship, obviously with no points scored, but he is now officially on the board, Paul di Resta in 22nd place in the Drivers' Championship. He is technically behind Antonio Giovinazzi, who is classified in P21 with no points on the board as well. Lowest placed driver in the championship with points on the board is Stoffel van Dorn with 1 point on the board. He supersedes Julian Palmer and Marcus Ericsson. Podium time here in Hungary. The Iceman mounting the podium, and the fans have all poured out for the main grandstands, and they are now invading the racetrack as is custom. And we await Sebastian Vettel to take his place on the top step of the podium. He looks very happy to have won that Grand Prix, and Ferrari, of course, another 1-2 finish. Very, very cool. Stand by for the German and Italian national anthems. I wonder where we've heard that combination before. Yes, the combination of the German and Italian national anthems, they almost sound like they are one unified piece of music to any Formula One fan, and props to whoever chooses the arrangements of the anthems for the podium ceremony, because both of those arrangements are in the same key, and they definitely fit well with each other. Obviously, they had a lot of practice, 91 times with Michael Schumacher winning a Grand Prix, and 60-something times winning a Grand Prix with Ferrari. First place trophies are presented now to the drivers and constructors. Kimi Räikkönen hoisting his markedly smaller P2 trophy aloft, and P3 for Valtteri Bottas. Is it a deserved P3? Probably, considering that really was his position on merit. Hamilton had taken it, trying to take the fight to Ferrari. He failed in that effort, and he gave the position back to Bottas. Both of the Finns go straight to the champagne bottles, as is their custom. Sebastian, however, spraying it all over everybody. And in Parc Fermé, looks like a mural has been painted. Fernando Alonso sitting on a beach in his pose from Brazil 2015 when the engine let go. However, Alonso once again sitting in a beach chair in Parc Fermé there. That's a cool thing. Thank you, Liberty Media. And doing the interviews today, it is David Coulthard. Sebastian Vettel talking about the problems that he had with the car balance, more so with the suspension. The steering was all over the place, he said. However, very nicely driven, I must say. Finally getting a close look at the suspension of Vettel's car. The front end looks totally fine, but if you've got a steering problem, in other words, if the car is pulling to one side or another down the straight, I would be more intrigued at looking at the rear suspension. Could we see any problems there? If the car's not sitting squarely on all four wheels, it's going to pull to one side or another, and more often than not, a problem on the rear is going to cause the car to crab one way or another. In NASCAR and IndyCar on the oval tracks, you notice that as the cars are going down the straights, the body is not exactly facing straight ahead. That's due to what they call stagger in the car. They set the cars up intentionally to pull to the left so that they turn better through the left corners. However, Formula One car, you want it to track straight and level, and when that's not happening, your steering is going to pull one way or another. Hey, if I got the call from Liberty Media to do the podium interviews at the US Grand Prix, I would absolutely be there. However, that's never going to happen. Hey, I would rather have 2.7 thousand fans who are very vocal and very supportive than have millions of people saying, huh? So, yeah, absolutely. Basically, Valtteri and Kimi, two Finns, not saying very much in the interviews, no real substance there. Coulthard pointing out that Kimi did have the pace to win today, and Kimi's just like, I know I had the pace to win, but that's good for the team, and we're happy with that. So, yeah. Vettel goes into the summer break leading the Drivers' Championship. That is really good for his title chances, I must say. Yeah, the blue hat for Bottas looks a little strange, I must say. It doesn't fit at all with the rest of the Mercedes uniform, which is mostly white with a bit of gray and green thrown in. But it's what he wears, and Hamilton also sometimes wears that blue Mercedes hat, so I guess it's company issue. And this ad break, it's plugging the Belgian Grand Prix, so we can excuse them for this one. Belgian Grand Prix coming our way Sunday, August 27th, so almost a full month away from now. However, summer break, it started as a tradition in Formula One, and now it's enforced by regulation. The teams have to physically turn the lights off in the factory for 2 weeks. So everything effectively goes into suspended animation. No work is allowed to be done on the cars, no development, no nothing. So it's suspended animation for 2 weeks. F1 2017, what's that? I don't know what you're talking about. F1 2017 looks okay with graphics, but with physics it's going to be typical Codemasters all over again. Meanwhile, on the VRC website, the Williams FW19 is on the website, but next to it it says soon. So expect a release at any time now from VRC of the Williams FW19. I will be thrashing that thing about at a moment's notice. See, the problem that they're going to have with the classic cars in F1 2017 is the classic cars are going to feel better than the modern ones. Yeah. Cody's physics, I just don't like them. I really don't like them. They don't feel realistic. The tires just, they don't grab the circuit, and just generally everything feels sluggish with the handling, so I don't like it at all. The cars do not feel really hooked up by any stretch of the imagination. It's not a sim. It's really not a sim. You really can't get a good feel of the tires. So, for example, in iRacing or Assetto Corsa, you feel the tires grab into the tarmac and you know exactly what's underneath you. With Cody's, you don't have that sort of feedback. Ayrton, yes, you have come very late. The race is over. However, to recap what has happened today, Sebastian Vettel has won the Hungarian Grand Prix to the tune of 0.9 of a second in front of his teammate Kimi Räikkönen. Valtteri Bottas takes P3 in a very late swap for position with Lewis Hamilton, who finishes P4. Max Verstappen comes back from taking his teammate out to finish P5. Fernando Alonso manages to finish the race in P6. Honda, the power of dreams. P7 for Carlos Sainz. P8 for Esteban Ocon. P8 for Sergio Perez, P9 for Esteban Ocon, P10 for Stoffel Vandoorne. A double points finish for McLaren. Vandoorne scores his first points of the season. P11 for Kevin Magnussen in the sole remaining Haas. Grosjean retired with a left rear wheel that was not affixed properly after the pit stop. P12 for the Torpedo, P13 for the Complainer, P14 for Lance Stroll, P15 for Pascal Wehrlein, the first of the Saubers, P16 for Marcus Ericsson, P17, the last car classified, although he did not see the checkered flag, Nico Hülkenberg. Not classified are Paul di Resta, Romain Grosjean, and Daniel Ricciardo, who was taken out by his teammate. In the Drivers' Championship, heading into the summer break, Sebastian Vettel leads the Drivers' Championship with 202 points on the board, P2 for Lewis Hamilton with 188, P3 for Valtteri Bottas with 169. Daniel Ricciardo in P4, no points scored today, obviously, with 117 points, and Kimi Räikkönen in P5 with 116, just 1 point between Ricciardo and Räikkönen in the driver's standings. P6 for Max Verstappen with only 67 points on the board. That shows you how much trouble Verstappen has had in the first part of this 2017 season with reliability. P7 for Sergio Perez, 56 points on the board. P8 for Esteban Ocon with 45. P9 for Carlos Sainz with 35. P10 Nico Hülkenberg with 26. P11, not starting today, Felipe Massa with 23, Lance Stroll in P12 with 18. He's equal on points for P13, Romain Grosjean. P14, Kevin Magnussen with 11 points. P15 for Fernando Alonso with 10. 16th for Pascal Wehrlein with 5 points on the board. 17th for the Torpedo with 4. And P18, Stoffel Vandoorne with 1 point. He scored that today. With no points on the board are P19, Jolyon Palmer, P20, Marcus Ericsson, P21, Antonio Giovinazzi, and P22 for Paul di Resta. In the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes lead the Constructors' Championship with 357 points. Ferrari in P2 with 318. P3 for Red Bull with 184. They missed out on some good points today for sure. P4, Sahara Force India with 101. P5 for Williams with 41 points on the board. Toro Rosso in P6 with 39. P7 for Haas with 29 points. P8 for Renault, 26. P9 for McLaren with 11, and P10 for Sauber with 5 points on the board. However, this does conclude our live stream of the 2017 Hungarian Grand Prix. I do thank you all very, very much for watching. We now head into the summer break, almost 4 full weeks without any Formula 1 action. However, I do intend to keep your appetites sufficiently wet with some Assetto Corsa and maybe some iRacing content as well. We do have some great mods freshly out, and we've got a new one coming in mere minutes. Williams FW19 from 1997, courtesy of VRC. You will be seeing videos of that car shortly. However, until next time, thank you very, very much for watching. It's always fun on these live streams for the Grand Prix weekends. So, until next time, though, thank you very, very much for watching. Ferrariman601 saying, we will see you soon.